do. I am excited about what he's going to do for our kids and our program. So, Coach.
I appreciate it, Coach. Thank you. I don't need a microphone, in case you guys can't tell. I appreciate y'all being here deep down. You know, this is home for me. I'm coming home. Coach Fletcher touched on something. He did have the opportunity to coach me. That tells me two things. He's getting old. But even when he was young, he had the same hairline. All right, so don't let him fool you. He never had hair since he's been at West Brunswick High School. Mr. Hayes, I appreciate you being here. You know, Ms. Benton and the administration, since this process started, I guess late January, have been full on board with getting this thing turned around. And thank you guys for being here. My wife sends her apologies. She is back home. We're in the process of trying to sell our house back in Shelby, North Carolina. She will be around. If there's one thing I did, you know, I'm the son of a coach and my mom's here tonight. I learned how to pick a great coach's wife, and she's going to be involved in the program, you know, as a team mom. She'll be around. We see this as our ministry. This is not a job. This is not a hobby. This is what I think God called us to do. He sends some believers to Africa. He sends some to Honduras. He just sends me to that grid out there that happens to be 120 yards long and 53 yards wide. And I believe that's what He's called me to do, that and to be a mission in this field, in my hometown. I want to thank the committee who hired me. Obviously, Coach Fletcher and I have a relationship that has some interesting dynamics going back from being a player and a coach. My life changed when Coach Fletcher came here when I was 18 years old. And I was on the Carolina Preps podcast last week, and I mentioned to Chris Hughes of how special it is to have an opportunity to come home and work for a guy that coached you. And I was so fortunate at West Brunswick High School that I never played for a bad coach. From assistants to head coaches, had an opportunity to play for Mike Alderson, won a state championship in baseball. And from the time our family moved down in here to 1994, the coaches at West Brunswick High School have been like second fathers to me. You know, I'm not going to name off all of them, but there's a group of 7, 8, 9 men who have been incredible influences in my life. And I stand here today thanking those guys, and then, you know, certainly I've gotten out and I've seen every youth coach in this town. I've shaken your hands. I appreciate you guys being here a lot. I've gone to all 3 feeder middle schools. I had Mr. Tom Roberts, who's here today, coached me in Little League football and coached me in baseball. Cray Milligan, Randall Morrison, Robert Cox, Butch Redwine. You know, those guys, Mark Jones and Brian Fimble at the middle school, T. Kemp Hill, Frawley Hughes, those guys just made such an impact on me, you know, because they invested in the young people in this community. And Mr. Tom, I thank you for being here. I know we've got a couple of former players that I had an opportunity to play with here, and then we've got some other former Trojans in the stands. If you guys don't mind, the former players in here tonight, you mind standing up for me? You know, I see Mr. Clemens, Jordan Lancaster, who played with me, went off to Charleston Southern, had a great career here. Jordan and I played together for 2 years. He's a great man. He was a great teammate. And then both of my brothers, Will had an opportunity to play for our dad. What year did you finish? 2000? And then, of course, Sam, our local celebrity sports writer, played for Coach Fletcher and finished a year behind me. So I came home because of you guys. I told the Booster Club function when I asked the former players to stand up, I was floored that there were 25 to 30 people who stood up and had worn those wings or had played at Shallotte High School or Waccamaw High School that even predated West Brunswick. There is something special about playing here. And for a long time, this was the prominent and premier high school football program in southeastern North Carolina. And we came home to get that done and to get it back here. That's the bottom line. It's about serving young people, and it's about serving them in a way to forge a football program that puts out great young men that's graduating from this school that has an opportunity to go off to college. Whether or not they play college football is irrelevant, but they will have a better experience by playing winning football. I believe that from the bottom of my soul. I want to recognize my mom. I already have. Mom, thank you for being here. Sam and Will. Will's family is in attendance here tonight. My sister-in-law Maggie's about to have Sam's second child, their second child here any day now. So I know she would be here. But this is very much a family decision about us coming home. So, my mom would have my son here, and I pray to God that I'll get a chance to coach Henry and Weston, Will's little boy here. I hope it works out to where we're here that long. That's what we came here to do, and this is going to be a process. Real quick we met with the young men, and it's great. We've had a lot of support in the community. We've had a lot of fired up former players, but the most important thing that we can do is going in that weight room and forging relationships with these young men that are here right now. And I told them today, we had a team meeting right before the end of school. We've got some guys who kind of dabble their toe in the pool. It's time to jump in. And it's going to take an all-out commitment from me, from whoever we hire, from the administration, but most importantly from these young men that are here. That's what it's got to be about. And on everything that you do, we're in the process of putting things up in this locker room. We're going to buy shirts, and I hope everybody in Rourke Stadium right here to our left is wearing something that's got it on it. It's going to say Trojan Football. It's going to be in Kelly Green, and there'll be an acronym up there that says LPDTT. Those are the 5 core values that I believe any football team or any successful sporting team has in a common belief. And if you've ever sat in that locker room and you've played on a winning football team, you know what that's about. Number 1, that L stands for love. We want to build a program where we've got coaches who love one another, that we've got players who love one another, but more importantly, that we've got a staff that dives into the lives of these young men, both on and off the field. We want to see young men grow athletically, but we also want to see them grow academically. We want to see them grow socially, so that they can come back here when they're 23 years old, or they can go off to wherever their job takes them after they get done, and they can become productive men and productive citizens in our society. We need good men in our culture. We don't have a lot of them. All right, if there's one thing that I know, and I sit there and I ask them and I try and get to know them, we've got a lot of guys. It's mama, it's grandma, it's uncle. I want those guys to see my son at practice, to see me be a dad, to see my coaches be dads, and to see them be husbands. And that starts with that first core value, with everything that we talk about. The second one is passion. This is a tough game for tough people. Period. It's not easy. And until you've put on those pads in an August heat, and some of you guys that have played, y'all know what I'm talking about, and you've walked out there, it's not for everybody. It's not. We want to play with a radical enthusiasm that when you see us play on Friday night, you see a bunch of guys flying around, swarming to that football on defense, having fun, celebrating with each other on the sideline. So love and passion, discipline. It's the most overused word in sports, because I think people just think it's, he's late, you do this. Sometimes discipline's as simple as it's 3rd and 3, and somebody gives you a hard counter. You're going to be disciplined enough not to jump off sides. It's about keeping young men accountable for what they do in English class. It's about keeping young men accountable for what they do off the field on social media. It's about keeping young men accountable for what they do on the field. And it's about helping them grow and understanding that a lot of them haven't been taught right and wrong. All right, that's the bottom line, is that I'm going to be patient with some of them. And then there comes a time where you have to make some tough decisions in this position. And I understand that, and I welcome that. But we're going to forge and build a disciplined football program. The fourth one is toughness. And I mentioned how hard this game is. And I love baseball. I was a better baseball player than I'd ever been a football player. But there's a lot of people who like to play baseball and like to play, quote-unquote non-contact sports. Until you've got hit by somebody in a face mask right in their sternum, they don't know how hard this game is. And it's about running the football, it's about stopping the run, and it's about playing really good on special teams and forging a program that's incredibly tough at the line of scrimmage, and they're mentally tough. And then when adversity strikes, how are you going to respond to that adversity? And the secret sauce, the fifth core value, is togetherness. I've been so lucky in my life, from playing on a state championship baseball team here to coaching, to being a young assistant at East Carolina under Skip Holtz. When we won a conference championship in 2008, we played in the national quarterfinals and ranked in the top 10 at North Greenville University. Every one of those teams had a common denominator, is that the coaching staff mandated that you do things the right way, and you make things tough on them, but you make things fair on them. But by creating that culture of investment, I refuse to let the guy next to me down. I refuse to let my coach down. I refuse to let my teammate down. And I refuse to let this school down. And when we get to that point, we will practice on Thanksgiving Day. It is going to happen, which means we're in the fourth round of the playoffs. And when you put yourself in a position to practice on Thanksgiving Day, then we're going to take a bus right up I-40 to Chapel Hill, or Durham, or Wake Forest, or wherever they play the 3AA state championship game right now. And that requires not just belief from me. I wake up in the morning, all right, and I say a prayer. And when I lay my head down at night, and Mom will tell you I've been waking up pretty early. I wake up really early, and I say a prayer. And then I work all day. And then I say a prayer before I go to bed. But everything in the middle, if I'm not thinking about how to be a better man, a better husband, or a better father, I'm thinking about getting this program, taking a gravy train up I-40 to one of those places to play for a state championship. That's what it's about. I hope everybody's on the same page. And I hope you guys that are watching back home, I hope that gives you goosebumps thinking about how cool that'll be to see Kelly Green flags flying off a Chevy or a Ford or whatever you choose to drive. I think about that. I mentioned the community. It's been really great to come home and have that Rolodex of people that you've known forever, that you know that are willing to help you. But even in the last 3 weeks, I've met people, guys, that I'd never met in my life. Whether or not it's connections with this school or this program. We've got a lot of people that aren't from here, but this has become your school. And I appreciate all that you guys have done. I look forward to working with y'all in the future. I just can't say enough about how excited I am. I appreciate our administration. I appreciate you, Coach Fletcher. I'll take any questions. It doesn't have to be from the Brunswick Beacon. It doesn't have to be from ATMC. I think I'm a little bit better in a Q&A setting. But, fire away. I'm ready to take them. You got any? Anybody got any questions? Do we answer them all? Go ahead, Jordan.
Tell me about your staff.
We're working really hard. I've spent 12 years in college football, and Coach Fletcher and I kind of shared some laughs over this because we both took this job from a quote-unquote college background. It's so much easier when you take over a college staff and you got 8 jobs and you just kind of go down the list. Okay, this guy's a good quarterback coach. This guy's a good defensive line coach. Well, at this point, you work with Mr. Hayes, you work with Miss Fullwood, you work with Mr. Pascal, you work with Mr. Stanley, and you work with Miss Benton on what teaching job is going to be open. I know right now we've got a couple of spots pretty full. We can't release them. I will tell you this. My background at the core of who I am, despite being a quarterback, I'm a defensive guy. From what I learned at East Carolina and coaching it and being a coordinator for a year at North Greenville, and some of the guys I had a chance to work with, I'll be really involved with the defense. I want to hire 2 coordinators that can call it and run it. We'll have some guys that'll stay around that have been on the staff. We do prioritize. I prioritize the line of scrimmage. You got to get a good offensive line coach. I think we've got one. You got to get a good you got to get a good coordinator opposite of the side of the ball. We've almost knocked that up or knocked that down. that obstacle that was in our way. So I'm really focused on getting the right people in here that are going to see coaching, as being a good guy. You know what I'm saying? And you can find good coaches that are good people and that are good husbands and fathers. Anybody else? What's up?
Touch on a little bit in regards to community involvement. What can we do as fans, as alumni, as boosters, maybe beyond our typical booster club involvement?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, the first thing is, I don't think it's any different being a fan than being a family member. We spell love in my family Time, all right? The first year, I have no idea how it's going to go in regards to wins and losses. We need more people like you guys that are going to be with us win or lose, because I don't know what it's going to be like the first year. Now, when we get this thing rolling, and it's going to get rolling, it's not going to be hard to convince people to be right over there on Friday nights. It's not, all right? But right now, we need you to be there, all right? And then the other thing is, and I'm not ashamed to ask it, it costs money to run a football program. I've got no shame in asking for money. All right, I told Coach Fletcher I was floored. We made a Facebook post. We had to raise a certain amount for camp. That was a pretty substantial amount. We raised it in 42 hours. But, I want to treat these guys the right way. We want to get them gear. We got to make sure we get our coaches gear. It costs $7,000 to buy a certain amount of helmets or shoulder pads a year. Football's more expensive than everything that we do. So, it's time or money. That's the biggest thing, is make sure you're here on Friday nights, wear green, and then if you're in a position to help financially, we need that. And I appreciate that question. I really do. And we're working and we're forging hard to keep working to put a product on the field that we know some of that's going to take care of itself by putting a winning product out there. But, still got a long way to go, still got a lot of excitement to create, and still got a lot of money to raise. Go ahead.
I know it's still early, or you only been here for, less than a month. Personnel-wise, football-wise, how much have you, assessed that, taking a look at what you have coming back players-wise, and the second part to that is, and you hit on this a little, from a football standpoint, what will a Brett Hickman coached football team look like on Friday night?
Yeah, talking about the personnel, some coaches handle this in a different way. I wanted to know exactly what we had. I watched every game on Huddle of the varsity and the JV team. It's easy to access that. You try not to analyze what they were doing schematically, just trying to see who's a football player and who's not. Or is this kid playing the right position, or how does he fit into what you want to do schematically? The varsity had a bunch of seniors, particularly on defense, that I saw. But there's some guys in that rising senior class that I think we can build around. Watching that JV team now got me excited. There's some kids there that I think our 10th grade class right now, that's a rising junior. I think we got some guys who can really play, and I think they want to be. I think they want to be good. Now, how they're going to respond to how we coach them in the spring and the summer, we'll see. But the thing that West Brunswick's had, with the exception of maybe a couple of years in the mid-2000s, we usually have guys who can run, at least a couple of them. But we've got to get stronger to play the type of football that we want to play, which is dominating the line of scrimmage on offense and defense. Now, from a schematic standpoint, we're never going to substitute the 7 key areas, which, not to touch on all of them, but it's explosive plays, making people drive the whole field defensively, not giving up the big plays, not winning the turnover margin. I think that's the most important stat in football. We want to be a sound football team that can threaten every inch of the field horizontally and vertically offensively, and then defensively, we want to be known as a team that just flat gets after your rear end. That's the bottom line. And if you see a football team that can run the football offensively and can create explosive plays through the passing game and plays great defense and doesn't turn the football over, I'll show you a football team that can play in mid-November or late November. Now, saying all that sounds great. It's cookie cutter, but we've got to get there. That's what I hope it looks like. Any other questions?